Hello and welcome to another episode of Sportscast Jersey. Today we are joined by Jersey Football Association President Bradley Vowden.
Springfield was very, very different, and you've probably seen some of the photos, but not only playing in a different direction, but some of the Muratti footage, there wasn't a lot of grass, so there probably wasn't a lot of football. You know, it's the home of football, and we need to keep that, and we'll do everything as we can as a Jersey Football Association, and I'm sure from players and supporters' point of view, to keep it where it is. I'm still fortunate enough to say that I've never lost the Muratti. Not claim to fame, but just nice to know when you come to retire that every time I go to Guernsey, I can remind them that I've never lost. Sunderland, again, I was fortunate enough that I got an opportunity up there through my good friend John Trigg being there at the time. So I went up to see him and then trained and then did well and then got invited back. That it's not all about playing for Man United, Liverpool or Chelsea, Rangers, Celtic. There are careers that start at much lower levels. Certainly looking at the golfing class in the under-21s was really positive. I'm sure Martin is looking to include a number of those in his Muratti squad, and I think that's fantastic. The future is fantastically bright. And I look forward to what that future holds for the girls. I think a lot of these guys wouldn't be involved in any activity. They would just potentially come and watch an odd game of football at Springfield. But all of a sudden, this has got them back with the mates kicking the ball again. So, yeah, it's fantastic from a JFA point of view.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sportscast Jersey. Today we are joined by Jersey Football Association President Bradley Vowden. How are you doing today, Brad?
I'm very well, Dan. Nice to see you. Other than the weather, I'm good.
Yeah, it's been shocking today. Been out all morning, but luckily inside. So, yeah, it's been shocking. As I always do, I want to start right at the start. What are your first memories of sport growing up?
That's a very interesting first question, Dan. Actually, to be fair, I was very, very lucky as a young lad. I had two very sporting parents, and I was an only child. So I remember, unfortunately, I missed my father's football career because he retired quite early due to a knee injury. But I remember going down to, interestingly, the FB Fields where James Scott has actually been trying to recreate some football and some sport, but those netball courts were where I spent evenings and weekends watching my mum, and obviously we had a sport shop, so our life was sport. So I was very fortunate enough to have a very sporting upbringing right across the whole sporting plethora, to be fair.
Obviously big football man. What were your first memories of local football playing? Obviously, your dad was a good player as well, and obviously you missed him playing. But how big an influence was he?
Oh, both my parents were huge in my career, right across, not just sport, but in everything. And as you say, unfortunately, I didn't see Dad play, but even I can remember first memories of probably playing in the Stars Trophy in Guernsey. And winning. So from a playing point of view, but if you trawl back through some of the photographs, you probably see me behind the goal at many Murattis as well, actually, because just brought up being a true Jerseyman. So back in the day, you could get behind the goal. I remember many Murattis. Watching Paul Carberry and some of those guys playing in Murattis, and Rory Crick and Brent Pittman, who fortunately I went on to play with as well, which was great. But watching those in Murattis was a real early memory, and I guess that got me the bug of interinsular sport. So
we'll talk about that more later. But locally, you played for Tower, played for Wanderers. growing up. How good were those clubs, and how good was playing for them?
Yeah, it's very difficult to compare, and I'm sure people talk about the greatest players they've watched, and is it George Best or is it Messi and all that sort of stuff at that level. But I was very fortunate enough to play in an era where we had a lot of people come over from the UK and play. So both Tower and Wanderers had a lot of guys that had come over from, whether it was Scotland, Sheffield, Newcastle, or whatever. And the standard was really good. Unfortunately, we didn't have the level and the quality of the pitches that they play on today. And Springfield was very, very different. And you've probably seen some of the photos, but not only playing in a different direction, but some of the Muratti footage, there wasn't a lot of grass. So there probably wasn't a lot of football. But yeah, some really, really good players. And I have to say, and I've said this many times, there was definitely players that I played with and against that could have had careers at the professional level. Obviously, Graham was one around my sort of age that went on to have a fantastic career. But there were many others that, in a different time with a different opportunity would definitely have gone on and played at a high level.
Yeah, sure. And let's touch on Springfield for a second. How's it been to see the kind of revolution? Well, the change of Springfield over the years, from what it was when you were growing up to probably what it was when I was growing up. Grass pitch, pitch side, you could go and watch any game on that little mound and on the grass. And what are your opinions on the change and how it looks now?
Well, if we go right back to the old Springfield, it was just a fantastic place to go and play and watch. So, when you talk about memories, I remember as a player that after training on a Tuesday and Thursday, if you weren't obviously playing at Springfield, everybody would migrate down to Springfield. And everybody would stand at the side with Dave LeVar and Ian Golding, and have a bovril and watch the game. And that was just the norm. Everybody did it. There was Mad Charlie O'Connor and a load of characters at the time that used to migrate to Springfield. So they were, again, great memories. Playing wise, obviously I was fortunate enough to play on that pitch. But moving forward, certainly my family as well, and my mum and dad were very vocal and supportive of not losing Springfield, because I've spoken at length of, it's the home of football, and we need to keep that, and we'll do everything as we can as a Jersey Football Association, and I'm sure from players and supporters' point of view, to keep it where it is. But I think we have to move with the times, and I think one of the things that the new Springfield provides is it provides a facility that 1,000 people a week play on, and I think that's amazing. When you look at where we've come from, certainly post-COVID, the ability that we had to get back playing football, the ability that we had to get people's health and well-being back in playing sport, and whether that's through walking football, disability football, senior football, women's football, it's just fantastic to see at all times of the day, whether it's schools participating and renting it, or teams and Centre of Excellence being there in the evenings. It's just a fabulous facility that allows us to play all year round as well. We don't get games cancelled anymore, and that if you're playing at Springfield, it's going to be on, and it's not going to be off because of the weather. So we have to look at it slightly differently, and we have to look at it that it's a fabulous community facility.
Yeah, I agree. Taking it back to you captained Jersey through the age group, and through the years. Have you always been that sort of leader, and did you relish that opportunity as well?
I relished it, absolutely. Yeah, I always was quite vocal. And at times I certainly wasn't the best player, but I felt that I could get the best out of players, which I think is an important role as a captain. You don't have to be the loudest and don't have to be the best, but you want to make sure that you can get everybody pulling in the same direction. And as you see now, it isn't all about individuals, it's all about team ethics, team spirit, team work rate. And I think, whether it's in business or it's on the sports pitch, working and having that sort of harmony and unison is far greater attribute. So I guess that was probably a strength of mine, which I enjoyed. Under 18s, I vividly remember playing in those Murattis. I'm still fortunate enough to say that I've never lost a Muratti. Not a claim to fame, but just nice to know when you come to retire that every time I go to Guernsey, I can remind them that, I've never lost. So whether that was 18s, 21s, 15s, seniors, whatever. When you talk about the camaraderie and that, I'm still friendly with a lot of those guys in Guernsey. And whilst there's a huge rivalry on the pitch and when you play, it's great to be able to now go back and see some of these guys. And obviously, from my point of view, putting something back in through my, volunteering on the board of the JFA. But yeah, I think that's really important and something I'm really proud of.
How much did you enjoy those kind of games against Guernsey? Is that always a highlight of the year for you?
Yeah, absolutely. As I touched on earlier, I was brought up in a very sporting childhood and family. So interinsular sport and inter-island sport was always huge for us, whether it was football, cricket, netball, whatever. So having that opportunity, A, I was very proud to captain my island and play. But B, that was the pinnacle. And for the large majority of footballers across the Channel Islands, it still is and should be the pinnacle of their career to represent the island. One or two are fortunate enough to go and play at a higher level, and that's fantastic. And I'm sure we'll touch on that in terms of the opportunities for players these days going forward. But I think, for me, growing up, representing your island and standing there and, lifting that Muratti vase is still a real special memory.
Absolutely. You did get the chance to go to the mainland, have some trials and experiences there. How were those experiences? Obviously, there were knockbacks, but Sunderland, for example, invited you back for a longer period. How were those experiences for you?
How were they? Obviously, as a boy, when you get a rejection, it's very difficult, and it's it's probably upsetting, possibly. But if I'm honest, I remember I was fortunate enough when I went to Newcastle. It was just after Paul Gascoigne had gone down to Tottenham, so I remember training with the reserves, and it was a whole new level. I was 16 years of age. And I remember looking around and thinking, Paul Stevenson and people like that went and had careers like, I'm a million miles away from here. And likewise at Sunderland, again, I was fortunate enough that I got an opportunity up there through my good friend John Trigg being there at the time. So I went up to see him and then trained and then did well and then got invited back. But again, there's levels. And I think I was probably realistic enough to know that at that point, I wasn't good enough to play at that level. And to be fair, both clubs, both Newcastle and Sunderland said, if you want a career in the game, there is a career in the game for you, but it wouldn't be at the top level of the game. And I've always had pushed myself to wanting to be the best I can. And I think at that point, I realized that actually, I can probably have a better life, better career in Jersey and play decent level of football rather than moving away at a young age to go and play in the lower leagues as they were such then.
Yeah. You did get an opportunity when you moved to London under Martin O'Neill, a well-known name, with Wycombe. How was that experience? And obviously, how was Martin O'Neill to play under?
Yeah, that was a very bizarre experience, Dan, I have to say. So that was I broke my leg actually playing for Tower in Guernsey, and I had a bad fracture. So I snapped both bones in my leg. So I had a rod inserted through my kneecap. So that was a year. And then with the rod got removed, that was another 6 months. So at that crucial time in my career as well, it obviously wasn't perfect. So that was unfortunate. But I moved to London through work at the time. I was money broking, so got a job in the city. And God bless, but the late Jimmy Reeves had spoken to Martin O'Neill and said that I was in London. I remember it very clearly that one night Martin phoned me. He said, introduced himself. He said, I hear you're living and working in London. He said, we've got a game on Wednesday night at Southend. Do you fancy a game? And to be honest, I thought it was a wind-up. I thought it was, but I sort of recognised the voice a little bit from the television. Anyway, I drove down and met him in the car park at Southend, and did okay that night. So he invited me back, and we trained at Adams Park. But again, I was working in the city and starting work at 7 o'clock in the morning. And at that time, they were in the conference, they were in non-league, and it was just a really big commitment. Steve Walford, who went with Martin actually up to Celtic and pardon me, to Villa in his career, was also there at the time. But yeah, great experience, great memory. But it was just something that I realised fairly quickly was going to be very difficult for me to be able to combine working the hours that I was expected to work in London, and train and play, because Wycombe wasn't round the corner from where I was living. So it was like an hour and a half's drive there and back twice a week. So yeah, just logistically it was a challenge, but great experience. And yeah, I wouldn't change that at all.
Yeah, for sure. Talking about trials and going to England, we'll touch on Ireland youngsters and their opportunities now. Obviously, we've seen the likes of Lasso, Pittman, Vincenti go abroad. Now Luke Harris is on the scene doing well. Marlon's doing well in Belgium, I think. Cav as well is doing well in non-league, National League, sorry. How these trials and how good are these opportunities for the younger up-and-coming players?
Again, good question. And I think, going back, there was an element of luck involved in people making it. You had a very short window of opportunity, whether it was a weekend or a week, to go and impress. And obviously that water between us and the UK was always a challenge, because from a club's point of view, they had to sort of compare and look at it and say, are you significantly better than what we've got that lives around the corner? And if so, fine. But if you're not, then there's a whole investment and a conversation involving families and, logistics and, moving and things like that, which obviously Luke did. So that was a difficulty. I think now what we have and the pathway that we have through the Centre of Excellence is a fantastic opportunity. And I'm sure you've read recently that we've been in talks with the Premier League and with the Football Association, and changing the criteria around the opportunities for children, boys and girls in both Jersey, Guernsey and the Isle of Man are on board. So what they had previously was they were very restricted on where they could go, and that restriction was pretty much Southampton. And what we've done now is allow that to open up, and it's an hour's travelling time. So as you can get quite a way on an hour on a plane from here now. So it's just giving them an opportunity. And I think the important thing for me now is for our Centre of Excellence to be able to give more and more youngsters an opportunity. And I think for me, one of the key opportunities and understandings is that it's not all about playing for Man United, Liverpool or Chelsea, Rangers, Celtic. There are careers that start at much lower levels. So from a GIFA and from a Centre of Excellence, it's building relationships with lower level teams. And it isn't all about the top level, because the rejection at the top level, as you know, is vast, and it's just very, very difficult. But, like you've seen with Alex Scott in Guernsey. So, gone to Bristol City, worked hard, got his opportunity, and now being spoken about as being potentially 50 million quid and going to Newcastle. So I think that's a fabulous story. And I think one that, I would love our Centre of Excellence, boys, girls, parents to take on board, that, it's fabulous to have aspirations to go and play for whoever your boyhood club is, and England and Scotland or whoever. But, we are now able to give them the opportunity, and it's that opportunity which they then have to grasp with two hands, but, be realistic in where they go. But, the links we have now, are fantastic. There's lots of clubs that want to come to Jersey. So on the back of what they see with Luke, what they saw with Brett, what they saw with Graham Lasso, what they saw with Matt Letizia, all these people, it does put Jersey, Guernsey on the map.
Yeah.
And as I touched on earlier, there's no way that they are the only few players that could have made it. There was many more, but possibly just didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. How you've obviously seen a lot of the youth Murattis, junior Murattis over the last few years. Obviously, Jersey have been doing well in them, winning the games. How good is the future of Jersey football looking?
I think we're in a fantastically strong place, I have to say. And, that's not only down to the coaching, but it's a combination of things. I think Springfield, I'll be honest, I think has an impact to play in that. I think the facility and the ability for teams and for players to be able to train in a way that they can, everybody, we're chatting here on Thursday morning after watching, and in my opinion, you didn't quite agree with me last night on Twitter, but an unbelievable game of football, where one team in particular were just phenomenal in how they passed the ball. Now, not everybody can pass the ball like Man City, but what I see from our age groups is that we all now try to play football. And in the Muratti, historically, it's always been a bit of sort of blood and thrust and get it forward and, huff and puff. But we now genuinely look to play. And I think that's a significant step and a credit to Paul Rent and the guys at the centre in terms of how they are developing the players. And they have an understanding from under 12s right the way through of trying to play the same way. And I think that was certainly evident last year when we won every age group. Obviously, we weren't quite successful this year in the under 18s. But, I think, again, when I watch the under 21s, I get feedback, and again from people that I know in Guernsey and families and friends that I know, and they believe that we're quite a way ahead of where they are in Guernsey. So I think that is a real credit, and as I say, it's just nice to be able to see that the hard work pays off, and when these lads do go away, they are seen as they've got good technique. And that's really important when you first go. You need to be able to control the ball. Everybody can work on fitness and speed and this, that, and the other, and strength and conditioning. But if you haven't got the basics, then you're never going to make it.
Yeah. The main one is coming up in a few weeks. The main two, sorry. How are we feeling ahead of the trip to Guernsey, and are we confident we can get the 2 wins?
Always confident. Absolutely. And I think, recent Murattis, if they're anything to go by, then there's no reason why we shouldn't be confident. Certainly looking at the golfing class in the under 21s was really positive. I'm sure Martin is looking to include a number of those in his Muratti squad. And I think that's fantastic, because I think, it gives the youngsters belief and an understand that, they are going to be included and they are going to get opportunities. But, let's be honest, Guernsey are playing at a higher level. GFC are playing at a higher level than Jersey Bulls. So in terms of their exposure, they're technically playing at a high level. And I'm guessing that the majority of the Guernsey team will be made up of GFC. I saw the announcement this week, albeit I did know from Tony Vance a couple of weeks ago when I saw him that he was going to be taking the team again. So, yeah, I'm sure Martin is well aware of how they play, what they do, what their style of play is going to be. And, Murattis are always tough games. There's never going to be many goals in it, I don't believe. But I think we've probably got I'm not saying slight edge because we're playing in Guernsey and it's playing at Foots Lane. But, certainly no reason to be negative in any way. And I think we should be very confident going into the game.
Definitely. Looking forward to it. What's next for Jersey FA? What are the big plans in the future, and how important is support and sponsorship for those plans as well?
Again, good question, Dan. Thank you. We've gone through quite a change within the board. So we've recently had a number of new board members join, and it's remarkably different to when I joined back in 2017. I came onto the board under Phil Austin as president, and that was a fantastic experience for me. But that was a group of 5 or 6 people that were really keen on putting something back into football. It now looks very, very different in terms of equality, inclusion, safeguarding. There's been huge change in the number of years that I've been involved, and it's all for the better. But what it does mean is that your board now, it looks very, very different, and our board meetings are very, very different to what they were back in those days. But in relation to sponsorship and commercial opportunities, it's a difficult topic because everybody is desperate and crying out for sponsorship, and we're no different to that. But I think if I talk about football as a collective, we have a demographic that starts at minis and goes right up to 75, 80-year-olds playing walking football. And I think that's a really powerful story to tell. So not only the inclusion and equality that we do with the disability football, the women's football, the corporate football leagues that we do, the business leagues, but there are fantastic opportunities for sponsors out there. And this isn't a forum for me to go out and put a begging cap out there and say anybody want to come on board, but we are looking to talk to partners and have key partnerships with people. For example, we were lucky enough to have Jackson's for many years as our league sponsor. Now, Jackson's were fantastic to us, but there's an opportunity there for somebody to come and sponsor the leagues. Likewise, Link were wonderful for our Centre of Excellence. Now, that's got to be a huge opportunity for a corporate body to look at the ability to work with better players and a pathway to looking at their development and how that can work and the synergy that can work with some corporate clients. So there are opportunities. We are going to be coming out in the press within the next couple of weeks. We're just finalizing our pitch deck and our corporate responsibilities and opportunities that we are going to be presenting out there. But there are, from pitch side boards right up to, as I say, men's and ladies Muratti opportunities out there. So yeah, hopefully people listening to this will either come and give me a call, or we can hook up and have some conversations around what opportunities there are, because I think it's important, and it isn't just about men's football. It's making sure that the message that we send out there is women's football is growing, and it's growing hugely. We might not have the male Letiziers currently in our ranks, but what Maya is doing across the water now, playing for Man United and playing for England. We've got the World Cup coming up in a couple of months' time. Football is going to be on the television, and women's football is going to be on the television, and we're seeing it at the younger age groups, the amount of young girls that want to come and get involved in football. So whether that's through schools, whether that's after school clubs, whether that's holiday clubs, it's just fantastic. So, the future is fantastically bright. And I look forward to what that future holds for the girls.
Yeah, definitely. You're going to send a women's team and a men's team to Island Games as well. How exciting is this summer? Not just that, but also the Walking Football World Cup as well. It's a big summer ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. The Island Games historically has been, wonderful opportunity for players to play at the highest level. We talk about Murattis and representing your island, and then this goes to the next level in terms of having a feel for what tournament football's like. I was also very fortunate to go to Italy last year when Jersey represented England in the competition over there, and it's just great when you see the guys and girls together for a whole week. And playing against people that they've never played against before, playing against cultures and countries that have different ethos and different techniques and different styles of play. I think that's going to be no different this summer, and it's really exciting. The men have got a particularly tough draw. I'll be honest. I think Menorca will be very strong. It's their first year back into the competition, and I suspect that Spanish team will be technically very good. But again, we're going over there with confidence, And again, I guess a young squad. It's a lot of football in a week. It's potentially 6 games in 7 days, I think. So a lot of football, but it's a great experience. And also to go and watch the other sports. I've said to you right at the beginning, I've been brought up watching multiple sports. So to have the ability to go and watch the swimmers and see the atmosphere in the pool and then on the track and all sorts of things is fantastic. And you do get that opportunity when you're there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well.
How good will it be to see a lot of medals coming Jersey's way in Guernsey as well?
Probably makes it slightly sweeter, doesn't it? For my Guernsey friends that see this. But yeah, historically Jersey have done very well. But we are one of the larger islands, and naturally by default, the Isle of Man, Jersey, Guernsey are going to be strong. But there's equally some, Åland and some of the Scandinavian countries are strong in certain sports. So it's just a fabulous week. It's as close as most of these athletes will get to being in a sort of mini Olympics or mini Commonwealth Games, if you want, for a better phrase. So we're staying at St Pierre Park Hotel, fantastic facility. There's indoor pools, there's golf courses. So there'll be professional athletes for a week. And I know you'll be there. So it's going to be fantastic for everybody.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Touch on the walking football quickly, the World Cup. How good an opportunity is this for those guys as well?
I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I think it's only going to go from strength to strength. I know David Kennedy was only telling me recently the amount of people that all of a sudden have knocked on his door and said either they're old enough or can they be considered or how can they get in a team? And is this what the future's like for the walking football guys? So I think it's absolutely brilliant. I touched on earlier, but the demographic and having an island 9x5 with 107,000 people, to see youngsters from the minis up to 75 or 80 still being active every week. And I know you've come down and seen the guys down there, but the camaraderie, the competitiveness comes back very quickly. There's some interesting dynamics in how people actually walk these days. It's not like you or I would be walking in the street. There's some interesting techniques, but just seeing some of these old faces, that I play with now retired, some bandaged up, some look more like mummies than they do footballers. But I think the experience that they're going to have to go to a World Cup is just going to be amazing. And I'm sure, the government and the media will certainly get behind it. And hopefully, again, it just puts football on the map, not back on the map because we're always on the map, but it just puts us on the map in terms of what can be achieved. And that whole camaraderie, I think, is fantastic. And if you ask the guys that play, I think a lot of these guys wouldn't be involved in any activity. They would just potentially come and watch an odd game of football at Springfield. But all of a sudden, this has got them back with the mates kicking the ball again. So it's fantastic from a JFA point of view.
Yeah, brilliant. Final question: what's next for you? Are you going to be kicking the ball around and walking football, or how long are you going to stay around with Jersey FA?
Good question again, Dan. You keep asking me very good questions. The honest answer is I don't know. I'm very busy work-wise. I've got 2 very active 14-year-old twins, and I still like to try and keep fit myself. I play a little bit of development cricket, so helping my son in that department and playing. So weekends I've taken up bowls, which again, somebody might think that's quite surprising because it's not quite as active and high paced, but it's a bit of a release and it's nice and I've loved it. I started playing last year. So there's lots of stuff that I want to do. And I've always said that, I don't want to, I'm not saying hang around, but I will always be a supporter of football, supporter of Jersey, an ambassador for all sports. I've been asked if I'm interested in, going on to other boards that involve multiple sports. And, I guess time is the biggest commodity and the biggest issue. We're all busy. But I want to try and make sure I have a balance and the work-life balance is important. So, I really enjoy what I do, but there will come a time when I will hand over the reins, but you certainly still see me at Springfield and at all events, watching all sorts of sports and supporting Jersey.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for coming on. It's been great.
Dan, before I go, I just want to say, just on behalf of the Jersey Football Association, thanks very much for everything you've done for us, not only this year, but last year. I think your coverage, your social media output and your involvement, not only behind the lens, but behind a keyboard as well, has been fantastic. So thank you very much indeed, and look forward to seeing you in Guernsey for the Muratti.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, can't wait for the Muratti. That's the main one. Thanks for everyone who's watched this. It's been a great podcast. Another episode of Sportscast Jersey is coming soon.